Estamos okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. Welcome back. Everybody feeling energetic after lunch?
Yes. No,
Yeah, right.
The other way.
All right, so this is, there's some technical pieces in here, but it's going to be more of a company update, what's going on with instantiations. Actually different from, what we've done many years in the past. This is more, we'll talk a little bit about culture within the company, a little open up, the inside a little bit more and just talk about our company. I've reviewed some of the presentations in the past, and it's mostly, we did this, and and we're trying to provide a little more insight into how we operate as a company, and therefore why we make the kind of decisions that we make. Okay, so in this session I'll cover quite a few topics. First, as we said, I just want to let you know who instantiations is now. And then that will be followed up by touching on our company's primary core value and why we think that's important to us as we operate. I'll also talk about how we're growing as a company. And next is an update on our FinTech line and why that matters, really to all past users. And finally, what's upcoming for VAST and sort of where we're headed in the future. And of course, I'll certainly be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so who's instantiations now? So this is important because there's been 3 instantiations of instantiations, and we're currently on the 3rd incarnation. And so there's a large continuity of, from a founder's perspective. However, I took over the company about, I think, almost 7 years at this point, and that was handed off to me by one of the founders of the company who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Didn't have a very long retirement, I'm afraid, but he was a great mentor, and so now I'm running it today, and a lot of those values that were shared continue on. Okay, so one of our central core values, and we truly believe in this, and it really hasn't changed over the years, is people. And by extension, the teams they are a part of, and so I'll kind of explain this a little bit in more detail. So we ensure at the company we maintain a strong culture with highly skilled and motivated engineers committed to the customer success. So I think that's a big distinction to make there. We're very technical folks, we love the tech we're working with, but we also have an orientation towards making sure our customers succeed. And our staff is sort of a tightly knit group that support each other, our well-being, our development paths, with high levels of collaboration and engagement. So kind of without the wonderful staff that we have, instantiations simply wouldn't exist in the current form that it is. And we would actually struggle ourselves to reflect what we proclaim as our core value, which is peace. Okay, so our customers are crucial to our success, and we believe instantiations is instrumental in their success too. So we strive to contribute to that success in a number of ways. Most of those ways involve our staff having a good understanding of customer needs and delivering high value, high quality support and product features to fulfill them. So as a result, our customer interactions tend to be very relational and focused on customers' long-term success instead of a more transactional approach with a more short-term focus. For example, just like making the sale. That's not really how we typically approach things. So we would claim this customer relational approach to business has played a key role in our long-term success strategy. So regarding the community, we're all stronger as a result of the Smalltalk community. We're happy to be part of it and kind of give back wherever possible by sponsoring events like this one, and contributing code to open source projects when we can. So again, our relational business model, with its strategic emphasis on people, has led to happier staff, happier customers, community involvement, and a continued expansion of the company with new opportunities over the years. So we have a business case for this. Okay, so now with all that said, what's the result of instantiations continually putting value on people? Not unexpectedly, it's resulted in new opportunities that have been years in the making, which has allowed us to evolve in a positive direction, meaning we're able to grow, serve new markets, as well as our existing core markets even better. Okay, so instantiations has been growing for some time in order to meet some new and exciting demands. We acquired a new business line. I spoke about this a bit at the previous conference in a very limited detail. However, at this point, we're almost a year into the takeover of a new business line. As part of this new business, we've been heavily expanding the size of the company, the size of the staff at the company. We have a very talented and dedicated team that joined us this year. One of them's here, Shannon McLaurin. Appreciate that he's able to show up, and we wanted him to have exposure to the great, wonderful folks in the community. And so basically, we hired more staff to join the Bass Pack, and the latest hire who's joining us next year, January 1, is Johan Ship. And we're very excited about that. So he's obviously with us today. So the Bass engineering team did an awesome job with the kind of the more recent release of the Bass platform, and they're hard at work just finalizing the next version, which is the Bass platform of 2025. And our Bass customers are going to continue to see sort of the tremendous benefits of this trajectory. We've got new staff to help instantiations continue to grow in organizational and operational maturity. Greg Schultz, who's not here today, but some of you have met him before, is responsible for this part of the company. He's our Vice President of Growth and Operations. So in the areas of security and risk management, we brought in a CISO, which is a Chief Information Security Officer, to help with new security requirements, to help mitigate risks for the company and other business-wide improvements. Again, we have a really fantastic staff, bringing on new fantastic members, and it's just, at the end of the day, it just helps us serve our customers that much better. So another part of making all this possible is continuing to add to the solid foundation of all the products, such as Bass with new technologies. So we're big, I think as folks know, Mariana kind of showed, we're not just about maintaining solid software, we're about pushing the edge, and continuing to push the edge, and modernizing our solid software. So concerning Bass, we've talked about tech like Rust being the backbone of our Unicode framework within our virtual machine already. And we've added even more performance, stability, and usability improvements in Bass 2024, which was released in March. So if you've used Bass in recent years, you know that it's extremely stable and performant, and that trend is only going to continue. We're even starting initiatives to improve our customer experience all around, even in the ways that we carry out our relationship with them. We teamed up with some technical partners of ours in Raleigh, North Carolina, to help us build 2 custom ITSM customer portals for our 2 core business lines. So we're always working hard to deliver, better customer experience, which includes both products and services. And other operational improvements are ongoing as well. As part of growing organizational maturity, and with the help of our CISO and a third-party auditing firm, we just attained, about a week ago, after about a year of auditing, we just attained our SOC 2 attestation. At a high level, SOC 2 is a framework for cybersecurity protection. It's sort of a subset of ISO 27001. That includes built-in company-wide audits to confirm our ongoing compliance. So, and this is all for working with those customers in more demanding industries that must adhere to strict regulations. So we're excited about this investment because we sincerely want our customers to have that level of trust in us, that, in terms of not just how we conduct ourselves operationally, but they can trust us in things like if we have their data, right, that we know how to handle said data. So in order to build and maintain and sort of enhance the support of apps in the fintech applications, it takes kind of a wide range of skills, languages, frameworks, and technologies at many different levels of abstractions. Well, so that's good. To get those done and delivered. So, as a result, we have the skills on staff to help us with a really wide range of customer needs. So over the last few years, we've had an uptick in companies reaching out to us to see what additional engagement opportunities we could offer them. So in fact, that's how the acquisition of the fintech business line came about. It was from our engagement with one of our customers, arguably a very long and involved engagement. However, as we've been internally reflecting on how customers are seeking to engage with us, we've been building out sort of these formalized umbrella of services that cover the spectrums of needs that we're seeing in the market. And sort of as a result, we've been working with many of our VAST customers in ways that go beyond the support of the VAST platform itself. Our fintech clients, as they are getting to know us better, are expressing the same desire, and these kinds of activities are beginning to occur as well. Sometimes customers need more specialized help than what we can offer with our standard support. So it may be helping them with specific application issues as they arise, and working more closely with their development team and have the right contractual arrangements in place to be able to do that. We've assisted in helping customers migrate to the latest versions of VAST, and in doing so, we often work hard to improve their system in a way that leads them, makes it easier for them to upgrade the next time. So we try to help them, so that they're in a good position moving forward. And there are really all sorts of reasons that we see them reach out to us, but essentially it comes down to working more closely with the customer teams and having an appropriate arrangement in place to use one of our core VAST engineers to work directly on the customer systems. So we've had customers in both business lines that wish to have a specific feature developed and supported for them in the long term. And this usually requires a bit of discernment for everybody involved, because instantiations has to answer questions like, is this feature appropriate for the core product, or is it more of a domain-specific feature that needs to be developed on top of the product? Do we feel comfortable supporting the feature for the long term? What impact will this have as the product evolves? And customers have to answer questions like, are the constraints of how instantiations have to develop this feature acceptable? Is the value there given the level of effort and time and cost to build it? So we have those conversations, and if it is, we enjoy being the ones to be able to help them. Training opportunities are not anything new, but we never had an appropriate training course that we could run. So that's all changing by the end of the year. We have an instantiations developed training program that we run internally with a couple of folks at this point, and we're very pleased with the results. So this will help in situations where new teams are rolling on to support existing VAST systems. They don't quite have the expertise in VAST and smalltalk to get going quickly. So we're going to be ready to answer that call. So there are more services to come, or tweaks to existing services that the leadership team is considering all the time. So we'll certainly announce those as they become available. Okay, beyond just growing the company itself and the services we provide, we've been expanding how we interact with the community and our customers. So for example, just last month, we recently created a new event that we debuted in Europe called the VAST Platform Summit. So the Best Summit was designed to be short, but an impactful single-day event with ample time for networking and reconnecting with community members and then reconnecting with each other. The first one was held in Stuttgart, Germany, last month. And even though one might think we would only get attendance from those who were kind of located in Europe, which is actually what we thought, we actually got quite a bit of global pull from this event too. And the summit, as well as future events like it kind of gives us a unique way to open, direct, and in-person lines of communication with our customers. So we found it gives us and them a huge amount of insight into how we can all work better together. And also importantly, one of the takeaways was most of our customers, while they've been committed to us for a very long time, really enjoyed that chance to get to talk with each other. Sometimes there's the sense that our customers are sort of in a vacuum, alone by themselves. And so this was a critical event to show, no, there's a lot of teams out there with mission critical systems. They're being used, they're important systems, and this allowed a place where they could talk to each other, they could see that sort of ultimately that created a lot of energy. Okay, and that said, let's talk a little bit more about our new business model, which is in financial technology and fintech. So everyone at the company has been extremely supportive and excited about this. Instantiations is now directly supporting many of the largest financial institutions in the United States and Canada on very mission-critical systems that use a suite of products that we now have taken over support of, and which will be continuing to improve and modernize off into the future, very much the play we make with VAST. These products are supported by our amazing fintech staff at a 24/7 capacity. So the business acquisition took about 2 years to finalize, very long, and it officially began on January 1st of this year. So it certainly took a lot of time and energy and really trust from everybody involved. I'm personally, I said this last time, but I'm very thankful to our entire staff for the patience and how supportive they were throughout this process, because in retrospect, 2 years is a very long time of investment and uncertainty when the deal hasn't quite gone through yet, right? But we kind of wanted to always move at a pace that we, left instantiations and the entire, all the folks at it convinced that this was a beneficial move for everyone. And so here's the really exciting part, in addition to some other languages and technologies, many of these products, in fact, most of them are implemented using the VAST platform. And because of this, and who we happen to be, it represents a unique value proposition for our fintech customers. Because Instantiations has both the application domain experts and the platform runtime engineers at the company. And so this is a kind of an unusual situation in the industry to have that full stack of capability by one. So this dual capability allows us to deliver really high levels of integration and optimization opportunities at speed because we have the ability to make these changes across the entire stack, from the top of the application domain to the core libraries, the virtual machine, runtime, the bare metal, down to the bare metal, with infrastructure and people in place to be able to support all of this. For example, we can enforce stringent security measures, which is a big deal for us now, at every level of the technical stack as part of what we deliver. This is ultimately this is a win-win because our fintech customers get this incredible support capability from one company, and in turn, instantiations can make relevant business investments in multiple business lines at the same time. So we believe this creates a very special and unique value proposition in the industry. Okay, so for some fintech updates, let's see. So we continue to bring on new customers into our fintech product line since its launch in early 2024. and we're engaging with existing fintech customers in custom solutions to meet the needs of their financial systems. So this has actually been a really, I don't know if it was unexpected, but it's been really nice that not only did we bring on really most all the business will be closing of what we expected and more by the end of this year, but in fact, they've already engaged with us in ways that they like working with us. That seems to be the takeaway from the 11 months that we've been doing this. They like working with us, they want to work more with us, so we're getting more business. So this is also a big win for our VAS clients, well, for many reasons. But the first, is the fintech business line further solidifies the importance and the longevity of the VAS platform. So not only are our customers using it for their organizations and their customers, but we're using VAS ourselves to directly support customers with real-world mission-critical applications. So another way to think about it is we essentially become a customer of ourselves, and therefore we're definitely better positioned to understand and empathize with the evolving needs of our broader customer set. And this has the net effect of allowing us to serve them better, since we're sort of more on a parallel journey with them. Also, we have more resources to invest in VAS, as it remains a central technology in our fintech product stack for the long term. Our VAS customers will get even more value out of their customer experience with us as we continue to heavily invest in VAS. Sort of this has already been demonstrated this year with the investment of the VAS Customer Portal, which is a custom-developed ITSM solution, which raises the bar sort of in our service by providing a far more professional support experience than the tools really would have allowed us to do before. So we're absolutely convinced the relationship of these two business lines is allowing instantiations the opportunity to serve all of our customers even better for the long term, while continuing to sort of maintain our market focus. And we've kind of already seen indications that this is true. So we have lots of VAS customers that have invested in us for many long years. So we, in turn, look forward to continuing to provide even more value to them, continue to work with us. So we think it's a really great story all around. This VAS platform will continue bright and stable future, and we will continue to push the edge and modernize it and help our customers get more value. Okay, so what's coming up for instantiations? Sort of at a very high level, we're kind of constantly reviewing what we can do to sort of improve ourselves and the complete suite of products that we now care for, such as the VAS platform and the fintech products. We're in a growth phase at the moment, and that will continue for the foreseeable future. So it's a really exciting time for instantiations, and we're looking forward to the new possibilities that will result from it. That said, the management team at Instantiations is carefully monitoring this growth because we want to always ensure sustainability, and that, of course, is more important to us than the growth itself in many respects. So we'll have this continued emphasis on what we value as a company, and it's a focus on our customers, our community, our staff. This is ultimately what has brought us success, and we believe it will be a recipe for continued success. We sort of found that solutions tend to fall into place when you prioritize putting the right people in the right places, doing right by people, doing good business with others, and sort of being involved. So I know we've talked about this before, but every community, Smalltalk included, needs infusion of new ideas. For us, this means getting inspired by great technologies and approaches and sort of lessons learned from others and adapting them to the needs of VAS and instantiations. I know we were talking earlier today about AI, and that's no exception as we continue to learn about that and invest ourselves. And also like lessons we learned from languages such as Dart and Rust and Swift, which have provided some great building blocks and tools for our asynchronous frameworks, our Unicode support library, and we'll continue looking outward for new lessons. And with the sort of exchange of information plus our continuous R&D, we'll keep bringing new things to the table. Fast is a great platform that can integrate with lots of various technologies. Web-based capabilities becoming more and more important. We'll be focusing on new communications technologies and protocols, and our new basing technology is part of this too. And so these are kind of the use cases we're optimizing for, because this is where a lot of active development is happening for our customers. So we'll still continue to address sort of all layers of our stack for thick client applications, where there's demand to do so as well. But we must anticipate sort of future needs for development, even if they kind of lie outside the norm. Okay, so one of the future-looking needs we started investing in heavily is AI. And to be clear, we're not investing because it's popular, as we were kind of talking about earlier today, but because we see some real true value in the technology that can help instantiations and really, at the end of the day, our customers. So we forged some new partnerships with companies that want to work with us on integrating the next generation of AI solutions for vast, fintech, and other markets. And we're going to be working with them on a number of discovery projects planned for 2025, and one's actually already begun here in 2024. So, some other examples are, the focus of the kinds of problems we're trying to solve, and where the discoveries kind of go live will be, help keep knowledge of systems current over time, help with training and knowledge transfer. So we kind of talked about, basically making impossible tasks possible. I think that was kind of more or less reflected in some of the things I was talking about earlier on the AI panel. That's a really important value add. I would add that, through talking, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the panel, but one of the big things that a lot of our AI partners are saying is, hey Seth, we know that AI, we get like 1 million people a day, hey, I want to use AI, I want to use AI. Really, you shouldn't start there. You should start with, what's the value proposition, as you look at your customers, and what are their pain points? And now determine, given those pain points, what's the value of applying AI, if any? And they did caution us that they said it may not be appropriate, and we need to figure that out. But there are going to be places where it is, and so that should be where we're focused. And so I think someone said, maybe it was Elliot about a hammer, and we're not just wanting to take AI and run around and see what we can shove it into. We really want to be clear about the value behind this. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little more clarity on instantiations as a company, kind of what we're involved in, what we care about, how we see what it means to do good business, and why that's important more than just that we are nice people and want to care about people. But we're actually making the business case for this. And through living that out, we see that it leads to good things. And so that's who we are, and certainly if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. The first one is, if you could comment a little more about what's the functionality that the interface offers. Are there products? Are there products for bonds, for trading, cash flow?
Yeah, I would say they're mostly a suite of products related to payments, and a lot of them are kind of back office product suites.
Okay.
Those kinds of things, not so much client facing types of things.
Are they products out of the shelf or specialized for customers?
I would say that so it is a product line. So a lot of these kind of tier 1 banks are all using them, but there are also some specializations as well that are provided. So it's both this aspect of support and maintenance of the products, but also customizations per client.
Okay, good. I have another question. Okay. So, what about the AI? Are you going to integrate AI with dia2, or is it just for other?
No, I think it's all of it. Yeah. I think we're looking to integrate with the small talk development environment.
Okay.
I think we're looking at solving kind of earlier, holistically, what does it mean to be a team working on a very large system and millions of lines, code base that's been around for 10, 15 years. What does that mean as you need to keep the knowledge, the juggling the knowledge you got to use, you got to keep balls up in the air. How can AI play a role with that?
And regarding support for the developers in small, can you tell me more about what kind of support? I mean,
well, I think so for me, and when I do the eObserve presentation, I'll kind of, if I can remember on the fly, I'll kind of talk about how I used AI on certain things, and maybe that'll help,
okay.
like where I personally see value. But of course, a lot of these discoveries will be around answering some of those questions to say, well, where is the best place? But I do see value both in generation, like personally, like I love the comments generation piece. For whatever reason, the way my mind works, I just like first starting with something and then sort of having something to work with first. But I'm not more of a whiteboard person where I just pull stuff out of the ether. Mm-hmm. Some people work that way, I don't. So I kind of like to see, comment generation, and I work with that, and mold it. And then, so generation stuff is good, but I also like the kinds of tools that can describe, sort of more larger components and architectural components and those kinds of pieces, and new ways to present that information beyond just human readable text. And I think that's a lot of the stuff we'll be figuring out over time. I don't have the exact prescription at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are you planning to take this initiative of building a Spark community online, like a communication channel where you can share experiences, or is this only a one-time event that you're planning?
That's a good question. So we have the, I don't know if, Mariano, if you want to, from my perspective, yeah, go ahead. You have thoughts on it?
So the only thing we currently have at this point is the DevOps forum, which is a Google group kind of it's a place where the community can discuss. But the Google group may be okay to certain like the old mailing list, but I see the need though. I see now some people move to some more like chat-oriented discussion like Slack or Discord. So yeah, it could be something that we can see if there's interest. Our customers can certainly could be an option.
Yeah, I think we're definitely looking at more events. We consider the Vast Summit an incredible success. I wasn't expecting that much turnout, to be honest. And then also, I undervalued perhaps the how much energy was created as a result of the customers talking to each other and kind of where they were coming from and realizing that there's a whole community around this and being a part of that. So part of that's, especially for us as commercial folks who, like the folks here, this is part of the great part. You're here primarily because you love small talk. This is like, it's something that you deeply believe in. And I'm not saying that, the developers that use our product aren't like that. We certainly have a lot of those. But there's also a lot who, this is their job. This is what they have a job in. They're not necessarily, passionate on that level where they're going to show up at a conference. So for our challenge is always how to incentivize, that situation and make sure that they feel incentivized to want to come. So that's an ongoing thing. But as we showed at the summit, it's definitely possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice. Te ha dicho, tenés hasta I10, ¿ok? Lo que está 10 minutos atrás.
Hello everyone, my name is Ivan.
Acércate.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Ivan. I work at Facultad as a developer, and today I'm going to show you a little bit about an integration that we did between AI and FAST on topic with the discussion. So, first, motivation. What we want to do here is to have some tools that can help beginner programmers and programmers of all levels to code. Maybe they want to understand some method or want to write code, help improve names and so on. To have this AI, this companion, something like a copilot, to help them write code, right? So I'm going to show you a little demo. Simple demo, no complex demo here. So, first.
Sorry, can you make font bigger?
Oh, yeah, of course. Great.
16.
16. Let's go.
Make it 16. Think about old people, okay?
Okay, now go. So, first thing that you're going to do to start using this copilot, you have to load this configuration map. This is the UI, just load the parameters. This will also load this core. And then, since you can use almost any LLM that you want, for this example, we are going to be using ChatGPT, the OpenAI interface. You can also use it with any LLM that uses the same interface, for example, Llama and so on. But if you want to use it with another LLM, with an interface or connection protocol, you can just develop the model and just the UI for loading the configuration. So I'm going to show that in a little. So just load the configuration map for the OpenAI support, and that's it. We can start the image real fast. Okay. And as you can see, maybe here it says give me AI. You have three options. The first one is open configuration, then open chat, and how diagrams work. So let's go with the first one. This is the first thing that you do to set up the AI. So here we have this pure AI configuration, just a look. And we have two parts. The first one, the service URL and the API key, and then the computational model code and the small tensor. So first, we have to fill these blanks. You can use make if you want. API key, there we go. And then the URL. And then you can choose the conversational model code. In this example, we are going to be using GPT 3.5, but you can use whatever you want. And then the model tensor is something like how random the response is going to be. So we're going to go with 7, because otherwise the responses can get a little bit weird. So here you can test the connection. Okay. An information window pops up that you are connected to the LLM and that you can start using the tools. So then you save the configuration, and okay, let's go back here and see some of the tools. So let's see the samples.
see that here we have a new name, again, UNMdP, and three new options. Help me find our name, correct name errors, and explain implementation. Same here in the list of classes. Help me find our name and correct name errors. So let's start with the first tool, and let's say this one. So, since we all speak Spanish in Argentina, we are really used to making mistakes writing code or writing code, choosing names for messages and objects. So maybe sometimes we write a name, we are not really sure, that it is the best name, so we want to have some suggestions. Here what we can do is ask to Kirumi, help me find our name. So this pops up and it says new suggestions. Hey, you can see my suggestions in the list below. And you have some suggestions here. So for example, perform action with ID of matching user to if none found. Also, if you don't like the suggestions, you can click here or suggestions. And it brings you a new set of suggestions. And let's say that we like this one, perform action, etc. We can execute the refactor. It's going to ask to create a scratch. Okay, and the refactor is around here. So this for message, we also have the same for the class. So if I click here on the our name, it's going to do the same thing. So then the other one. This is for suggesting new names, maybe different, very different. But also we are used to making our grammar mistakes or the structure when we write in English. So we want to keep the same name but correct mistakes. For that, for example, let's see. This one. Okay. This one is written correctly. But if we ask Kirumi to correct name errors, I think it's going to say just that. I didn't find any errors in the name. But if we purposely make a mistake, for example, lowercase c, and instead of identify, identity something like that. Okay. I think it is obviously wrong, and we can ask Kirumi to help us improve it. So, correcting errors. Puede fallar, pero but we can ask again.
Try again.
Try again. Kirumi, please.
There
There we go. Woo! Okay, name errors. It says, hey, you can see my review below, and it says the message contains grammatical error and does not use camel case, the word identify is misspelled, and okay. So then you have the correct name, sensitive data of car, identify by. If you don't like the response, whatever, you can try again, but if you like it, you can choose execute rename. And that's it. Okay, and the same you have here for the class correct name errors. So, the last one in the list of messages, let's say it's okay. We have this implementation, we want to know what it does without looking too much at the code. You are lazy, we can ask you to explain it. So, explain implementation. Okay. So, here is this implementation explanation. Here we have a summary of what the message does. The code sends a request to every cards of a specific type from an activity group on Tarde. And then a step-by-step explanation to comments on the code. Okay, here we're going to talk a little bit about this later, but it mainly stays in the way it writes the code. It is that it writes comments in the code without really changing the code, just comments. So we can ask it to try again. And one more time. Okay, he doesn't want to do it. we can try something, because if we lower the whole center a little bit, maybe it will work better. So let's try one more time. Okay, he doesn't want to do correctly. In the morning it was working. Let's try with another message, just to see if it can work. Let's say this one.
The problem with that CPT behaves like a
Okay,
human.
there we go. Yeah. So there's the explanation, and then you have explanations in comments. The idea here is, was this comment? Just comments on the code, you can just copy and paste if you want to say the comments. So you see here, collect the responses, updating the mini group for each part of the collection, and then this one here. So you have explanation. That's it in this browser, and now we are going to look to new tools here in UNMdP and Transfer. So first we have, let's see this, help diagnose wall. So we have some past wallback, we want to have some first step, what we can do, where to put the first record, for example. So we have two examples of wallbacks. Let's look at them. Okay. So some wallback in the financial that we can do. And then we have another one. It says in the financial as an last then extra information. So we can ask Urimi to look at the wallback and give us some information. So here, help diagnose wallback. Here, the first one. So here it gives you an analysis. There was during when message session is on, send a list of IPS address, it is likely where the problem lies and where the problem should start investigating for the error. Maybe if we don't like again the response, we can try again, because of course it can make mistakes, as we saw earlier. And here it gives you another explanation. And you can do the same see what you want, for example, second example here. And if you here it responds IPS error unconnect, the message where the error is happening, so you can go from there and start typing. And last but not least, we have here an open chat tool. Okay. So we have this window in chat, and it says, hey, how can I help you today? So, hey, how are you? And then we hit send. Okay, I'm just a language model AI, so I don't have feelings, that's the one. Okay. But we can also click here in new chat and ask, for example, for do you know what smalltalk last is? And you can send smalltalk past, environment, and application framework, and so on. So here you have a chat, so you don't have to go back to ChatGPT in the web, and you can just use it here inside the environment. Okay, those are the tools. So a little bit about next steps. As you saw here, we like a tool to share code, or maybe help you write code. We tried that, and it was terrible, because of course ChatGPT knows practically nothing about the code base of Buzz, and even nothing about our code base at OpenBuzz. So when you ask ChatGPT to generate code for a smalltalk, it gives you weird responses. It doesn't really work. And we try to do that, and also to have some kind of review tool, so you can ask the AI, okay, how can I improve this code? It gives you an example, maybe you make it a factor, you ask him to help me better this specific part of the code, but again, it doesn't work because we really don't know our code. So to solve this, we are starting to look into RAG, that's retrieval augmented generation. That is basically put an agent between the user and the LLM, and the job of this agent is to basically know your code. So knowing your code, it can give context to the LLM. So for example, you ask, hey, can you write code to do, I don't know, retrieve all the cards from the database? So you first go to the agent, shows the question, and the agent goes to some kind of pictorial database, and picks up parts of your code that seems to be related. And that is what is going to send to the LLM, so it has some context, some information about the question. And that proves to be better. But we're still looking into it. We already have a team that in the past starting researching this topic, and hopefully we can start using it here soon enough. So yeah, that's it. So if you have some question or comment, whatever, now is the time. Thank you very much.
It's your turn. Yeah, what your turn. It's not that I'm going to talk to ChatGPT.
You reached your quota.
So, thank you for showing this to us. Looks interesting. But I cannot notice all the false responses gave you that you have to try it and try it again. So how do you know what to try it?
Oh yeah, you can never trust AI. You have to have some.
So are you using it, or is it just this for fun?
No, this is just a concept. As I said, we need it's really necessary to use RAG. This to be really helpful because here, for example, suggesting names and so on is useful. Explaining implementation. Most of the time, it really depends as yourself. But yeah, with RAG, we think that we can improve it a lot more. But yeah, this is just a concept. We're just starting just for internal use, and we started, just a concept, an idea, and we want to see what we can do.
Great. Thank you. Another person, but please.
So, what are your future plans? Things that you have in your head or in your backlog that you want to integrate to that? Interesting.
Other than AI or
No, with AI. What are the other things that we have?
yeah, next, just to improve this, to make it really useful, start testing inside the company to see if it really works, for people to maybe give some ideas, maybe this tool is another tool. But in my mind, in my head, the first thing, functionality-wise, that I want to do is implement some kind of intelligent query, maybe, because we are talking to the LLM. But now we have a default query, for example. If you want to improve the name, you ask, okay, so I'm working this small to have this message and so on. It is hard-coded. So we want the user to have essentially to modify the query and also to add parameters. So now we are only sending the selector or maybe some part of the implementation. Maybe the user wants to send the complete hierarchy, maybe the names of the class, and so on. So I want to have this UI. So the user can have parameters, maybe using its own meta, how to pick up the part of code that he wants, take into consideration what message is into. But yeah, just to get it more personalizable at the work. And on top of that, I think the most important thing is just to get it to work consistently. And then you have a tool to share it. That will be the dream.
I have another question. When you're doing RAG, let's say for instance Copilot usually sends the whole file you're editing basically as a context, and some other like fragments from other files that you find somehow linked to what you do. So actually they found that doing RAG, let's say if you're doing tests and you have the original file, the one with the implementation as a comment, this whole thing, yields better results. Weird, that's not practical, but for RAG it works pretty well. What do you provide as when you're doing RAG with this? What is it that what you choose to provide the context?
Okay, a few things. First, we want to, support the code tutorial, help the agent to know how to identify what parts what, and then learn our code. And also, we are working with an agent that starts to, that we are teaching him how our API works inside the company. So we have information about the interface and so on, what does each endpoint does, and information about all the documentation in the company that we have in Confluence, for example, or Notion. So yeah, we want to teach it everything that we have and find some kind of strategy so it works. Try out and error, I think. We're just starting with that a few months ago. So yeah, pretty.
Okay, good luck.
Any more questions? Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm back. I realized in the last I didn't even introduce myself. I apologize. So let's do that part. I'm Seth Berman, if you don't know who I am. I am the CEO of Instantiations. Just very briefly, I got started with Smalltalk in 2001. Doing warfare simulation for the DoD, and I worked in Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., that area for many years, doing C++, Perl, all sorts of stuff. Even Visual Basic 6, I had the pleasure of working with. And so anyway, I was able to get back to Smalltalk about 13 years ago, and took over the company about 7 years ago. But I really enjoy still being involved in technical parts of Smalltalk, or the VAST system in particular, but it's not always Smalltalk, as we'll discuss today. So quickly, basically this is going to focus on something called UNMdP. And basically it's the server component of our indie developer system. And so if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a highly integrated system in the VAST that handles everything from configuration management to version control, user authentication. It's got a repository, source code repository. You can use it as a sort of a centralized connection. Basically a centralized repository that you connect to, which is kind of what we're going to focus on today. But you can also use it as more of a, kind of in a way like a distributed version control system, which is actually how a lot of us at the company use it, which is basically committing locally to a local repository. And we have various tools to help us reconcile between remote and local repositories. So that's a little bit about that. So UNMdP essentially is something that a lot of our customers use that handles that centralized repository model where there's a lot of folks connecting to it, and so we have we're modernizing that piece, and so that's what we're talking about today. And specifically, we're going to focus in on sort of the security aspects from the last presentation. You can guess why that might be important to us. Modularity and performance, and then of course with an eye of basically future-proofing it for many years to come. So this is a critical modernization effort for us. and improvements we're making will not only strengthen the system today, but also ensure that we have some of our important future goals handled. So I'm going to be sharing details about the architectural evolution of UNMdP, how that evolution has been carried out, and how the results will benefit both the developers and the businesses when we get to the point where we'll be releasing this. And as I said a little earlier, what I'll try to do, which is a little different from the last time I did this, where I can think about it, I'll try to describe how AI tooling helps in various facets. Some are interesting, I think, just because there's so many different ways you can make use of generative AI and prompting and that kind of stuff. That it might be interesting to hear about just some of the ways in which it is used. Okay, so here's what we'll be covering specifically. First, we'll start by discussing the goals that are driving this effort. Next, we'll sort of look at how the UNMdP architecture has changed. And I'll walk you through the current architecture, the challenges we face with it, and then a look at the new architecture that was designed, which makes it easier to adapt to future needs. Then I'll walk you through the specific steps that we used to transition from the current system to the future one. And finally, after that, we'll explore our roadmap for UNMdP, highlighting sort of key initiatives that we plan to implement. Finally, of course, if you have any questions, feel free. Okay, so before we dive into the specifics of how we were evolving UNMdP, let's just take a step back and look at the big picture of why we're doing this. So the core goal is driving the modernization effort. And so let's take a closer look at each one of these goals and how they sort of guided our approach. So the first goal was basically we're focused on enhancing security by addressing potential vulnerabilities in the code base and providing really badly needed at this point security through our communications architecture. UNMdP was developed by various folks, OTI and IBM back in the, it's been around for a long time. And sort of, the security landscape has changed so much that we wanted to make sure that the connection and the ability to the central repository was really beefed up in terms of what it could provide in the security space, as well as the traffic that was going back and forth. And so we'll talk about that. Just so you know, most people don't use it in a WAN kind of scenario. In fact, we'll discuss why that's problematic. And so, having it be local within the shops, it's not like it's normally used where unencrypted traffic is just going around the world. It really was designed for local teams, and we want to open that up a little bit. Next, we'll introduce modularity, how we introduce modularity to break the system up into smaller independent modules, which makes the code base far more scalable and easier to maintain and implement new features. So we're also bringing any performance analysis tools to bear on the code itself, making those incremental improvements along the way. However, we're also designing necessary extensions to UNMdP that can be used to create better remote server performance. And another critical goal is, the undervalued goal is improving documentation. We're providing detailed, comprehensive developer documentation for all modules, making the system more transparent and easier to understand for new developers that work with the code bases. And it's an ongoing theme that I know I've discussed many times over. And here's another place where it's showing up. We're looking at the system and the care of that system and those teams over the long term. So this exercise alone has given us even more intimate knowledge of the system by doing that. And new ideas on exactly how we can extend it. So sometimes it's the smaller, undervalued things that make the big difference, right? I said earlier about the way we learn. We talked about the podcast generation piece. We talked about how if I simply write something down, how much that makes it into your head easier than just typing it. This is yet another thing. The act of doing the documentation created new ideas and better understanding even for the existing team. Finally, we're also focused on establishing a robust testing framework that will ensure the system stability and prevent regressions, which we were extremely concerned about And this is, after all, 10 to 15 years worth of code base and for our customers in a repository. The last thing we want to come in and do is have a nifty update that corrupts their database. So this is a critical area to make sure that we are doing due diligence on making sure every time we make these forward changes that we're doing them in a way that's safe, and we're testing, we're following good practices here. Okay, so these goals are the foundation. We need to implement these future enhancements, which I'll cover in more detail. Okay, so we covered the goals driving our modernization effort. So now let's kind of dive in and focus on how we're updating the architecture to make it easier to manage and better suited for our future needs. Okay, so the architecture that we deploy today in the UNMdP project is really based around 3 components built on top of the standard C runtime. So these components are mostly self-contained, they don't share code with one another, and they don't have any third-party dependencies. So while they're stable, and they are, the lack of shared code and sort of limited modularity makes updating and scaling these difficult. One example would be, you see the 3 different pieces there. Each one of those has their own socket implementation. And each one of those socket implementations is not a copy of the other, it's just some subset of each, whatever they needed for that particular module, and then of course, formatted completely differently. And it's not a complaint, I think it's just a natural thing that arises when you have something that's been around for a long time with a lot of different folks and groups touching it. And of course you have business demands and timing and those kinds of things and pressures that can create situations like that. Okay, so the first one is, first one of these components is UNMdP. So this is a command line tool used to manage and control the UNMdP developer server environment. So it handles tasks like repository management, user access, configuration, version control. When this component is built, it generally creates the command line tool that folks know who use apps called UNMdP. UNMprems, this is a component that provides the low-level functionality that allows Smalltalk to interact with the UNMdP repository, which we'll talk more about. So this can happen in 2 ways, directly through file I/O, or indirectly via socket connection to UNMserve. This is basically a socket server. And when built, this component builds 2 shared libraries, the file I/O and the socket client libraries, that Smalltalk images call out to when performing UNMdP-related operations. Finally, UNMserve is the central server that coordinates operations for teams using UNMdP developer. It acts as a socket server, handling the UNMdP protocol and facilitating shared access to the repository. So when this was built, you get what you might expect, a program called UNMserve. And I should mention again that this has been a very stable architecture over the years. And the point of this presentation isn't to make the point that there's something particularly wrong with the current architecture, given what it was designed to do. But like any code base, over time, we have to keep it up to date with the latest security standards, implement new facilities for improving performance, and make sure it's in a good place to implement new features that were perhaps outside the scope of the original design. Clearly, I missed my cues for. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this slide highlights the re-architected UNMserve code base. So this is based on 3 key principles. First is modularity. We split the code into smaller, independent modules, making it easier to maintain, update, and scale as needed. We have well-defined, strict interfaces between modules, ensuring that changes in one area don't affect others, improving the overall system stability and reliability. Finally, rather than hard-coding components, we use sort of a pluggable framework. This allows us to easily swap out different implementations or backends as needed, providing the flexibility to adapt more quickly to these new requirements. So this new architecture makes the insert more adaptable and ready for sort of these future enhancements without the need to do a complete system overhaul, which really isn't our primary goal at this point. We just want to get it in a really good place to continue to move forward and solve some interesting pieces like security and performance along the way. Okay, so now we've covered the current and future architecture. Let's focus on the specific steps we've been taking to make this evolution a reality. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Okay, so our first major step in modernizing the insert project was switching to a build system generator, specifically CMake. So this decision provided several key benefits. CMake gives us a single source of truth for the build process, eliminating inconsistencies across platforms and environments, and it ensures everyone builds the system the same way, making it more reliable. We're also enforcing modularity. CMake helps us break the code base into smaller independent modules with clear dependencies between them, and this is sort of critical for our long-term goals. I don't know if you can see it in here, so I'll try to weave in the AI piece of it. So we use CMake for our VM project, and so EM server sort of retrofitted with our CMake build system from the VM. Now those are older CMake scripts. There have been some newer calls in CMake that were created at later versions that actually really facilitate modular programming a lot better. It handles sort of transitive dependencies between what you could call modules to help glue things together and build things more easily. This was actually pointed out in one kind of conversation prompting with ChatGPT. And essentially, after feeding it enough of the existing, getting to the place where I was happy with, one of the scripts, and then feeding it what all the other scripts look like, it was pretty quickly able to get me to a place where they all were updated and commented. So those comments are primarily generated comments, and of course I'm overlooking and making sure that it all makes sense. But it's just a lot of that busy work and making sure everything is unified and those kinds of things. It really helped with that piece. And here, we talked earlier about the profound things in life are maybe the things that should be kept with the humans. This isn't profound. This is basically a prescription of here's the best practice. It's everywhere, and so help me generate the appropriate scripts. So I feel like it's a good use case for AI. CMake's cross-platform, and so it really, as well as cross-build, it provides different build systems pretty easily. And basically, it allowed us to do more incremental refactoring of the code base, and so that it's been. And again, we're all familiar with this internally because it's what we use for our VM builds. Okay, so next we've got tests. Yeah, this one was very interesting from an AI perspective. So before making any major changes to the insert code base, we needed a structured approach to ensure stability. So since the insert has been stable for so many years, we wanted to maintain that reliability, by confidently modernizing the code without introducing regressions. So we adopted sort of a test-driven development plan, which included basically a C unit testing module. So we developed a custom C unit testing module inspired by S unit from smalltaks. It includes sort of advanced assertion capabilities, such as timer-based and tolerance level assertions, to ensure precise and thorough testing of values, and something more necessary for maybe a language like C. We integrated this module with C-test, which is part of the CMake ecosystem, to run automated test suites as part of the CMake build process. So this allows us for easy integration into CI pipelines, so every change is validated during the build, giving us confidence that we're not introducing regressions. Finally, since EMsert operates in a client-server environment, we developed a thread module to help with simulating the ND client-server interactions by using native threads, mutexes, conditional waits inside of unit tests. So by implementing sort of TDD with the modules, build a solid foundation to modernize the code base safely. It did not have really any tests at this level. So from the AI story, I got it to a place where, so this test you see here is generated. So this was generated by ChatGPT. So it knew enough about the code base to get it to that point. So it's a nice looking test. The place where I found that it wasn't, it was okay, but it wasn't great, was where the test involved maybe a server thread, something external. Like you need to set up a server thread, and that lived in a different function, and it was down in a file somewhere. And sort of the scoping was outside the scope, but this scope is very limited, kind of like a local variable, right? It's very, open a socket and do this thing and close it and you're good. Not a start up a server and it's off doing its own thing somewhere else. It wasn't, at least I didn't get it to the point where it was extremely useful, so that was just something that, I got it to the point where I set up the server and client threads, and then it could take over. Okay, we also integrated Oxygen along with it, with CMake as well, so it generates the documentation. As part, basically, we just, like I said, it's undervalued to do these kinds of activities by some teams, but I think it's, it was really important to be able to, fully document each module. So we feel like, through the process, it improves code clarity, provides valuable resources for future developers, and so it's a pretty good thing. So here, documentation of the functions, the C functions, was something that was done a lot. It helped me personally, not just from make sure that here's a function now. Tell me what you think this function does, and do it in this format, which is the real thing, right? I need Oxygen tags. Here's sort of my template for Oxygen tags in format. I go ahead and generate something. Even if the comment wasn't perfect, I could go modify it to a place where I was more comfortable with it. But it's somewhat, I'm not a full-time developer, so everybody's time is precious, but I have limited time with regards to some of this stuff. So these kinds of tools and activity really save a lot of time. So security has been a key focus of our modernization efforts. We've implemented several critical enhancements, the most important being the integration of SSL TLS for secure communications between user and its clients. So we've introduced SSL TLS to provide encrypted communications. We've also made this flexible by introducing custom security parameters that you would expect today, certificate management, protocol negotiation between client and server. We actually have the concept now of an ENSERV version. So the client and the server can actually negotiate which version of the ND protocol that they are going to be operating off of. And so we actually use ALPN protocols, which is that piece where it decides which version of the ND protocol it's going to use is done during the SSL TLS handshake. So very fast. We've got it's basically all the ciphers and trigger verifications. Security scanning, we performed very comprehensive security scanning on to identify any vulnerabilities, particularly in the code base, the communications architecture, and so this helped us reinforce security in areas like memory management and secure communications. We've also improved memory management to ensure that memory is allocated and deallocated securely, preventing issues like buffer overflows and memory leaks. So our approach to managing the repository has evolved significantly as part of the ENSERV modernization. A key change is the introduction of a pluggable backend architecture, which allows us to support multiple storage solutions. So traditionally, the ND repository is a big giant flat file that really begins with a repository header, followed by a sort of table of contents like thingy, and then just a bunch of records. And the records represent all sorts of configuration management pieces of Smalltalk, like configuration maps and applications and classes and methods and users and all those kinds of things. So this is, the traditional version, but we've also provided sort of a backend for SQLite, which has features like transactional support and data integrity. That can make it a better choice in certain scenarios. Additional storage types can open the door for more advanced security mechanisms for protecting data at rest. And the backend system is extensible, meaning you can easily add new storage solutions as the system evolves. With the upcoming schema module, we'll be able to introduce even more flexible storage options. And so this modular kind of pluggable architecture is key to making UNMdP more flexible and kind of future-proof. We've made significant improvements to UNMdP's client-server communications, including the introduction of the new IPC module and support for protocol version negotiation. So essentially, the IPC module encapsulates all client-server communications, managing different protocol backends, and so this sort of provides a much nicer, safer way to, and allows us to be able to extend the protocol for future needs. And I sort of mentioned before, we have this protocol version negotiation. We need to do it in a way that ensures compatibility. So basically, because in a given central repository, you could have VAST clients from all different, VAST version 7 and version 11, they can all basically connect and manage code with each other. So based on what version they're on, they might need to negotiate a different version of the protocol. So we're also evaluating extensions to the UNMdP protocol to support wide area network scenarios. So our goal is to make UNMdP advanced scenarios an actual viable option. And so as part of our modernization efforts, we've introduced a new schema module to bring structure to client-server communications. So essentially, this new schema module is responsible for organizing the data and communications, transforming what was previously just an uninterpreted stream of bytes between the client and server into structured, well-defined data. So backing up for a moment, in VAST, the schema, or all of those records and how those are laid out, is actually defined on the client side. UNMdP itself in the backend repository has no idea what it's storing. It doesn't know it's actually storing Smalltalk code at all. And in fact, it stores objects as well. And this is one of the reasons why UNMdP was also used in IBM Visual Basic for Java. So there was a whole Java schema that was being stored in a repository. So a set of Java file records. And so it's a very powerful thing, but the problem there is when it all gets reduced down to these calls to UNMdP, it's just a bunch of uninterpreted bytes with indexes and things. It's because it literally has no information in the schema. It lives in the client, so that's okay. But now you can't make sense of that data, and maybe there's interesting things we could do with that data if we didn't have to interpret it down at the UNMdP level. So that's something that we've begun to really push harder on that, so we can actually understand the data that's coming in on the server side. Okay, so we're traditionally, as I said, Smalltalk image side. We're kind of porting that now to the server side. And so having a schema in place sets the stage for future enhancements. Once communication is structured, UNMdP will be able to conduct more advanced analysis on the data being exchanged. So this opens the door to insights, performance optimizations, and potentially new features based on a better understanding of the data and the exchanges of that data. Okay, then we have, coming near the end here, we've got a new compression module. This is basically, the way that we compress source code. Basically, the big deal, the nice thing here is there was a specific compression scheme that was only for the Smalltalk code itself, and it sort of, heuristic-based compression, which does a fine job. But again, you can store gigabyte byte arrays if you want. Not that that's a great idea, but you can do that into the repository. You can store all sorts of binary data. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. It's really that flexible. But it doesn't know how to store that efficiently. So you imagine if you had a zeroed out gigabyte byte array, well, in the NV repository now, it's going to take a gigabyte, which doesn't, in that particular case, would certainly not need to be the case with better compression schemes. So as a result, we've implemented user-defined, basically bindings to LZ4, Z standard, Rockley, and CLIB, which coincidentally happen to be the DLLs we ship with our product because that's what FAST works with. And so it'll just allow a lot better compression of these libraries. Okay, so looking ahead, just to be clear, everything we've talked about now is sort of in our development branch, the result of ongoing development we've been doing, and as time allows for me, but I'm trying to get, and this is the documentation piece and some others, and getting it nicely organized. I'm trying to get it to the point where more folks are going to be involved, and all just doesn't live, in my head. And so we have a lot of initiatives that we're looking forward to with regards to analysis at the repository level. And a lot of these are being made feasible now that these modernization efforts are taking place. So, as I said, we're working on those WAN extensions, being able to use NV in a wider range. And of course, you have to have security at that point. And we're also looking at, various other things that are related to security, digital signatures, encryption of service data, and repositories themselves, new ways to represent repositories like SQLite databases and others. Also, as we said, looking at new analytics that are going to be available for in repositories. And so this is sort of the roadmap of where we're headed with these. And I think it'll be pretty exciting when it does land. The first to come out will be the SSL TLS because that is complete. And while it won't make the next release, it will make the following. And of course, by that point, we'll have a lot more ready to share and know that it's going. Okay, so that brings us to the end. Thanks for your time, and if you have any questions.
That's a surprise. Was very thought about this, but I want to ask you this. So how big is server? How many lines of code?
Lines of code?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big application. It's medium size.
Well, I wouldn't say it's not a big application. And of course, we now have it to the point where before it was there was no way to, let's say your goal was to get it written in Smalltalk, or let's say your goal was to get it in Rust, or whatever.
No, it's not. I mean, because you need a lot of effort. I think you.
This isn't actually, so the effort is really in the untanglement piece. And it's too dangerous, I felt, or I'm not good enough to do it. So we basically take what's there and pump that into Smalltalk in a way that we'd be ready to get. There's some obscure pieces in there that's required some software archaeology, some understanding. And this whole documentation. There's a lot of goals here that are going to bring us to those questions. So I think we'll be in a place where somebody asked at the VAST Summit, you guys work with Rust a lot. Have you thought about putting in Rust? And yeah, we thought about it. But this one is more of now we got to get in a place where it's ready to have that kind of we have the knowledge for ourselves. We have that in a place where we can carry that over time. And really, at the end of the day, it's not a complete, as I kind of said, it's not a complete re-architecting. And it's like the only reason it's taking time is because I have limited time. But we're trying to get to a place where it's not just me. And that's part of this as well. Good question.
So, no? Okay, thank you. Oh. It was an obligated question.
It's a good question. I kind of started down that path, and I made it a little bit, and I was like, I'm not feeling good. Part of the system, I was like, yeah, I can handle that, but the other part, especially when you need the socket server piece and back and all that stuff. Well, I wanted to get a place where, yeah, we can say, okay, I'm ready to swap that. I didn't know how to disentangle and wrap the stuff I was doing. Lots of teams touched it.
Another winner.
Can't wait. Now I can get
weird for me because if you take the tagline solo programming, problems without programming is a bit weird if you go to programming related conference. But still.
The microphone is very, very faint. Move it further away, point it at yourself.
Okay, better now?
Also move it further away so you can
Stay with me.
Like one fist from your
Yeah? Okay. So I hope you get the stuff. So it's about not programming inside a programming conference, but I was told we should show off that there's real stuff out there doing small talk, and the backend and the system is completely done in small talk of adequate 100%, meaning including the database. There will be a talk tomorrow. Yeah. So but first, I want to thank FAST really for having me, for inviting me. First time to Argentina, and I really like it. So I just want to thank that you invited me being here. Something about myself. So we had this in the car driving here. It's really working. So first time I heard about small talk was 95. Yeah, and then I did some 3 years into actually doing projects. This was more on art installations and music analysis and visual generation, music clips. And then 2005, I happened to make my first startup, doing in-speak small talk. And well, we didn't succeed, but at least it was the start of my professional career, because after that I never did something else than doing small talk. I mean, it is Java before, you know how it goes. If you once there, you don't go fast. Yeah. ESAC-wise, or small talks conference-wise, 2010 was the first in Barcelona, and 9 years later, I did the one in Cologne. I was the organizer of that Cologne head-on. It's small talks the first time. So while being a small talk developer, I'm officially a member of our board, and I also did a lot of libraries and frameworks that are actually being used by other people because they complain sometimes. So I know that you could. Yeah, I just do a lot of stuff with small talk. So what I'm going to do today is just introduce to the product a bit why we do this. And I actually see internet connection permits. I try to do live use software a bit to make a simple use case so it's better to understand what we're doing when you see it. And then in the end, I will show a bit what is the match. I think that small talk for object-oriented systems are quite good match for the hypermedia, how we call it, or the internet, we call it, whatever. So, yeah, let's start. So for us, it's because all topics are usually pretty much technical, so that there is a world that is non-technical, and that's usually customers. So if you do an end user / end company product, you have to focus with people that do not know anything technical. And further in these days, especially in Germany, there is not enough developers. It's expensive, and there could be a gap for those here. So what we are here, we are interested in technology, small talk, and most of the presentations are looking into the future. What would be the next good thing to do? When we look at business for our customers, they're way behind, and nobody's closing the gap usually. So you can close the gap with a lot of money because you get some software company doing a project and all this stuff, but you need to make them able to get something more money. Yeah, so the relationship usually is more or less complicated because I just last week gave a presentation in Germany where the numbers are that 70% of all software projects fail. We had the all-time high in the lack of software programmers or developers in general. So, and then Germany is a pretty conservative company, so they try to catch up with digitalization. But how? Because these prerequisites are not up to say. yeah. That I said, problems are usually their software is expensive, no offense meant, but usually solving a problem, communicating, spending a lot in software, it turns out to be really expensive. So it's not for everyone. Our project mainly targets SMEs, which means small and medium enterprise. So especially the ones that don't have enough money to maybe use software project to solve it. Yeah, it takes quite a time. You always, I mean, there's money and time. You can exchange it back and forth. And then, yeah, software is still, I experience software mostly to be complicated, so I like to develop it more, so easy things are super easy, and hard things would at least be possible. Because all getting software projects turn out that hard things are really close to being impossible. In order to demonstrate a bit what we are about, because the platform is we could run the platform, so our customers don't have to. But we're not a branch software, so we don't have one topic that we cover, but we enable all sorts of. So I came up with something you might relate, the most issue tracker that you can imagine, which is basically only consists of issue and developer. That's it. So if you would like to do this, what could you do? I mean, or you hire a developer. This is better. We'll see. Yeah. So, and then you start developing a software. You make this model, which is really not too complex, so we can understand within seconds. But then you have to build a service. There's something like in the internet, and there is URLs, and you have to parse them, and you have to execution. Then you don't want to lose your data, you need a database, then you need a response, so there's even more to it. And when you finish doing that, you still have to get a machine, get it up running, configured. So the simple thing in software you want to do product is pretty complicated. Okay. I have things that the connection, the servers are hosted in Germany, so I think Argentina, Germany is not the least latency connection you could have, but it would give it a try. So this is if you log in your active way. So it's called a low code platform, so we just discovered decide the passwords, what's to it. So these would usually be namespaces or projects, so you can have multiple projects, and we just create a new one, which is smalltaks. Issue. And then you go into something which database people would say that's a table, we call it a grid, where you just say, okay, there is the first thing that I try to sketch my model. So it almost looks like an Excel, because that's the most accepted and the most used interface of all time. So and then you start just to model each step. We need a title, and then we need another column which is called description. And while you're doing this, you're just configuring the database underneath. So that's what we do, is that it looks like Excel, but actually when you put in SQL, like create table stuff, everything is working while you're doing this. And in order to be useful as an issue tracker, you will have some state, and here you see we have a lot of types, which is functionality of their own. So types are not only bad element, so they can even provide the same functionality. And one would be a single select, where you can just say the usual, there's nothing special here, in progress, and done. For programmers, it's almost like, call it an enum sort of thing. And if you have these, you could enter here something like that. And then the third thing is you're already in trouble. So making a UI. So this is already okay-ish, but that's not the user interface you want to use it in. In order to turn, well, you could call this a schema or an agent schema. You just create a form, which means another kind of user interface, and it's basically turning everything you had horizontally now vertically. That's basically the difference between a column and a form. Is just you make it vertical and it looks like a form. Super. You can just say issue. And then you say state. I don't want to have a form, so I plan it out. And then instead of just saying, okay, I give this to my colleagues. You could either, if you want to, you could scan this QR code right now, so it would work instantly, because the service is already, it's running, everything is done. I'm just demonstrating here, opening a new window, and when you do this, you get the form. That's it. If we have a second task, and a second description. So this link actually doesn't even need to log in. Yeah, so you can make it in a way that you can give this to anyone, because I mean, there's a lot on the internet working security by obscurity, so you have a long URL which has cryptic numbers in it, so nobody is able to guess, and there's no authorization. So then you send it, and you go back to your grid, you have it. Perfect. Then, as I talked about the types are usually rich, because not in usefulness of restricting the value encrypted, but they have additional functionality. One of the single select is you can try making it to a Kanban board, and then it just takes every of the possible states into columns, and then you can just go and turn your tickets into the next column, and that's just changing the state. So this is really demonstrates what the usual requirement for customers to solve digital processes are really basic, which you can solve with such a thing. But we wanted also to have developer into, so we make a second grid, and here we make just name and email address. This is Norbert, this is me. So the one thing is now missing from the model is we need a relationship from the issue to developer. So we create a new here in the middle, a signing column, and then we say we just need to link that to another grid. It's the usual stuff we would have entities and a reference from one as well. So this is the same thing, and then you can just select it and here you are, and then you will get the same drop down as the other one, but now it's from all the possibilities in the other grid. So this is already quite nice. So if we go on the Kanban board, we could even say, I don't want to have state. New fields need to be unneeded, a long discussion. And then you blend it in, and then the first task. Not sure. The first task has no assignment. So you don't then go back to the most basic way of an issue tracker. It's fully functional. So that would be the part of the whole system where you can make a model and make it help you anyway. The most used feature is these forms, because even if you don't think about it, when we are on the internet, we're filling forms all the time, because that's the most generic and basic data acquisition thing we have. But that alone would be just nice, but not really helpful, because you want the system to do anything, and for the purpose of demonstrating, I'm just saying, when you assign someone to a task, you should get an email, anything else. And there is the second module in the system, is a workflow system. And here you just at the behavioral side of the data. So now we have schemas, entities, data modeling, it's more or less static. The form can enter the data, but now we want to have something dynamic. And as I said, when we assign someone, we want to do this. So there's a thing that one entry that was already there is changed. Then we want to do something. So we choose the issues, and then the field assignee. So for now, we just leave any value. You can even restrict from that value to that value, from to any, or from any of the stuff. But this is working. And then you just go and press the button below to test the flow. And after that, clicking here, you get a presentation of the data that is flowing around. So what would have happened if someone would just assign this new user, and then you have the new structure. So what I said, I want to send an email, which then just saying the one thing happens after that, there is an email. That's the from name, and when it comes to recipients, you have these curly braces where you open the data that would flow through the system, and then it always takes, if you don't do it, it takes the latest entry. Okay, cool. But there is also assign me. Thank you for submitting information. So if you do it once again, and then you go in there, say recipients. So in the output now, we have the assignee. The assignee has the embedded stuff I expected to do. Then I just need to click on the email address, and so every time in the whole structure, at that position, whenever something is flowing, it will take a value in every row.
And Norbert, what would happen if you didn't have an email with the schema? You introduced this data source, was expected, was it that added to the schema? You validate records and don't have the email, or how does that work?
I didn't understand that.
So you have your schema,
yeah,
and then you add this new action where you need an email address. And it's the first time you need an email address, and it's not in your schema.
Yeah.
So what happens to the schema? Because it's missing the email address.
Here, the data just flows through, so it takes the schema into account. So you mean extending the schema here?
Yes.
We just didn't do it. So I could show a few other places where exactly that what you want to do, saying, and coming to that point and saying, no, I'm not going back, create, and then come back select, no. But we have this, for instance, if you expand something, and then you have here create field. So something when you're looking at it, saying, okay, there's something missing, I'm creating something, or the assignee is also, you can always create, so that's part of the front end. So we try to catch up with exactly these things, because these are annoying, like saying, there's something I need to go back all the way, that's boring, and we try to be not that, but we're still a small team, so we try our best, but that's not possible right now. Okay, back to the example. Just to see, then you have the email content. You just for you, and then you just do the same thing. You press here. So it's the title. You like and then description. That should be sufficient. So in this time, it's already the case when I have another developer. Me. But I need to change it now. So now, I mean, it's a demonstration show, so it's not supposed to work, but if we now select me, then at that point, that's exactly what the system happens. So the system should ignite the workflow. Oh, there was an error. So. It's not something. So maybe that. So I just checked. So switch it back. And then we should see. In the history, so just the time should be right, and I even should have an email in my. Oh, anyway. I don't know what this is right now. It's not important, just to show here. Anyway. So that's just to demonstrate that there's a lot of business cases where you can just have the right abstraction, and the biggest benefit of the tool I'm always telling is that the biggest problem in the IT industry I see is that the one that implements the software never talks to the one that has problems. And that's exactly what we do here usually. And the biggest success story was a non-trivial case where we have a screen sharing session. You just got an internet screen sharing session, you 90 minutes talk, click, no, bang, and it was done. The whole product was done within 90 minutes, and they still did. Alright, so I hope this was a bit clear. Yeah, and now to the principles we try to do HTTP or internet stuff for a long time. And one thing I always admire is usually you know hypertext, because HTML is called hypertext. Why it's called hyper? Because you have usually the first discover URL, you say. You get one URL and the response contains all the possibilities to go from where to where. So that's why HTML is so flexible, because there's no API, implicit knowledge, everything is explicit. So every page consists of all the possibility you can go from that page to somewhere else. And that's the hyper in hypertext. But you can also do this in hyper application, which is really hard to do because the internet or the industry does not go in the right direction. So we had XML and now we have JSON, which is incapable of having metadata and everything. So it's just a drag. So, but at least there is a few things. So, and then the most important stuff to think about is in the internet that if you have what a 0x is usually a memory address, every developer saying. So if that would be usually something like a service like your MMU, the memory management unit, will point you to the right direction. And the URL is nothing different. So the only thing is the L in the URL, and that's the host, because it's a locator. It's not only tied to my local system, because a memory address is strictly local physically on a physical machine. A URL just tends to say, okay, something but on that machine. Which, you know, the network is the computer. So that's one thing that can enable it, that you at least can pinpoint to all of them. When you have the reference, and the reference, I mean, the HTTP is resource-based. Remember, this is not behavior, it's resource-based. Then you can say, if you take the URI and an HTTP word, then you get the operation. And that's the all APIs, always the combination of both defines the operation. And in the simplest case, like here, a get on the same URI will be a delete action, put will be the write action, and the delete will be the remove action. And we make that strictly in the sufficient. We make it strictly because there's one thing that breaks I would say the asymmetry, because everyone is tied to our PC, so we have objects, we have methods we always go into these procedure calling, and there's the remote procedure calling. So everyone does this HTTP create user stuff, and that's pretty much the wrong approach, because the HTTP or the World Wide Web is a huge caching architecture. and you cannot cache behavior. You can cache state. And that's why it's about state. And there's one thing, I mean, Smalltalk maybe misses the proper reification of execution. But there's one thing you can do, and I really much like, it's command pattern. Command pattern is a wrapping around a method call, which is a resource which also allows you to check preconditions. You can wrap security and everything. So that's what we're doing, I think, to make because it's not obvious to make this HTTP thing work with the object stuff, but if you make this command pattern stuff, it's pretty easy and straightforward to do, and it works pretty flawlessly. When it comes to JSON, it's really, I mean, the JSON is a struct. And the types, I think it supports 5 types. Come on, it's not the 90s. So we extend the format with, I mean, it's string semantics, you know. But it's working pretty well because HTTP has multiple problems. And one thing is if you have a list of resources, you usually have a JSON array and then objects into, but then you don't know what is the identity of those objects. So the rest way would be that people tell you, yeah, you have to have a list of URLs to that object. But if you then do an application, like latency-wise, it's not a really good idea having 500 links that you all have to load in order to figure out something. So that's the basic mismatch you always have. And the whole format, which is hyper application layer, adds 2 things. And the one thing is links, making an association between 2 resources on the net. And we make it a bit blurry. This could be a property or a behavior. Because the URL and the method we just learned is an operation. So this is kind of, we're not fully there for me. And here the whole format has always a self-link, and it always pinpoints back to the object. So when you put this in a list, like you see in the grid below, here you have the array, but always there's something included, I'm actually this object. So you don't lose that. So you can identify the identities kept. And I left in the blue one the patch. It's just like for the graph operation, usually frontends do a lot of string semantic stuff, the URL. If you know when there is this number, then a slash something will be the patch operation. No, we make it explicit. So the whole URI with just the HTTP method is included in all the JSON, so that the frontend never string concatenates URLs to get something. And we on the backend we can change it when we want. That's all the hyper idea from the start. Yeah, so just for eating is you can reference or associate things. Self-links, with the self-link you have identity, embedding, and we even hook our security onto it, making the simple thing that there is maximum set of links you can have, and if you have no permission to it, it's not included. So the frontend can just say, I know the actions. If it's there, I can use it. If it's not there, I cannot. So then the frontend decides either not showing or praying out, which you would do in a business model. What we also do is you have this problem because the frontend is JavaScript. So it's not like C-side. C-side is really have it in one block, but if you have a JavaScript and Power backend, then you always have this JSON mismatch. And you've seen when I tracked the email address from the visual tree, that we actually do by generating an ActiveScript expression. So, and here I did a parser, just a descent from the RV parser, to a simple syntax which looks a bit more like JavaScript. And this whole parser and interpreter is done with Power.js, which transpiles to JavaScript. So, and that's the one thing that we have, the expressions we can use on the front end, same and on the back end. So I maybe show you tomorrow. We can even use this down to the database level. That you create, I presented it last week. That we create an expression on the front end that you transfer to the back end and give to the database, and that will be the selection block for adding the objects. It looks like this. It's just, it doesn't look too nice, but both above is the step function is on the flow. Each of the bubbles, when being executed, is a step. So when you're in the flow instance execution, it knows what a step is, it can pinpoint that, and then it knows it's a node, so it has an output. And then it depends on what the data you get, because if you have an HTTP request, you never know what you get. And then you have all the method to actually convert and select things from the net, from the database or something. And this goes down to the guest state. That this is an example for if there would be a JSON that would have one state property. Because then output get data, you get the raw JSON, and then you say, okay, again, there's a state, I will get that, and then I check if this is the same as done, and that's an expression that's being used in the front end, that's transferred to the back end, and that's easy to use when you database queries. Finally, also a discussion on last episode is that people were asking, I was telling about we have several downtime deployments, and people were asking about what do they do with the session object, and we don't have any. Because the session objects are kind of a design flaw, I would say. And stateless API here just means that every information you need to resolve the request is included in the URL. So here we have this user, my user ID, and the space. That's all I need in order to resolve the object. So if you make your data model proper and store all the necessary stuff in the database, there will be enough information for them to discover. And for such a backend, it's sufficient. And so there is no session object. We can shut down images and run out as we like, because you just will move to another image that you won't notice. So it's also a big strength in doing these services. And finally, we use an object-oriented database, which removes most of the brain, the headaches. And that's the database we did. I will present tomorrow. Yeah, that's how we get along with the internet and object-oriented stuff. Yeah. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Well, first of all, congratulations. The application looks great. Kind of reminds me of the dia2, the old thing. Actually, I have a similar approach, but I think it's better. I haven't used this one. I dia2 with the old one. Can you describe what's your tech stack? I know you say that you use Soil and you use Faro on the back end, but what's the rest of the stack?
Well, the whole backend is Faro images, so there's plenty of them. And for optimization, we make pinning. That means we have a local answer, which is HA proxy. And the first time when request, because every request to the user includes the user ID. So we just say every time this ID comes in, the first time choose any of the Faros, and then remember in the table, so that all subsequent requests will go to that image, which allows me to just when I get the objects on the database, just to build up cache, and then it goes pretty fast. And you can do a lot of that stuff, but always with the resilience factor that if the image goes down, nothing happens, because the local Ansible try it 3 times, say, screw you, and take another one. So that's the resilience factor of all of that. We have also, what I did is an API caching architecture. So there is something called Varnish. If you heard ever, it's the most used web cache. And we have kind of a protocol between the Faro images and the Varnish that it has notification when data gets invalidated. You know, the chicks to how things in IT, cache invalidation, and then maintaining things. And it's just that we have a big Varnish cache in front that every API request goes through. And on the hook back, it gets information about when you change something, and then you read, it's being cached. And then when you change something, on the reset side, invalidate those. And that means we have something like top-level objects like grids, yeah, and there's a lot of things that depend to the grid. And then when you read, cache, 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 and when you change anything saying, okay, but that invalidates the context of the grid, and then you tell the cache, remove all objects that are associated with the grid, which happens before you get the response. So that means on the next request it's already gone. But what we have is, well, it's HA proxy for SSL offloading, then Manish, then HA proxy again for the pinning, and then Summer. And the rest is class system. Because Soil works on class system, which is we use NSS right now. I use other things, but it's just to have multiple machines. Maybe Soil will be distributed database by next year or the year after, so we'll remove that. But the stack is HA proxy, Manish, follow.
And the cache invalidation, the varnish level, did you invalidate using a response header saying, how do you
response header, yeah.
Is a response header saying X validates and grid and then?
Two things. So there's the one thing the humans do is while using the front end, we hook on the response header, so it looks just as a header and then removes it. But if our workflow runs, there is no response header. And then it actively contacts the cache and saying invalidate. So we have something called context-oriented, or use context-oriented stuff, so process variable, and it just knows it's origin, context-origin, either HTTP or REST, or internal, and then it knows how to invalidate it.
And the front end, what do you use?
That's good. Vue.js. And Apache.
Yeah, of course.
Could you say what the front end is again?
Vue.js.
PUE is written. It's
like React, but well done.
Exactly. It's from old. Even for people that were in the React.js community, they found it too complicated, too bloated, to everything. They did a new start. And yeah, it's all they all work on this W3C components. You know, there's now a way how to isolate CSS and stuff in a rectangle so that they're get independent, and then enable a lot of component-wise front ends.
I have one question, and I think it's the last one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The reasons for going client, JavaScript client, and also backend instead of doing server-side rendering decision or something. The reason is more like because you already have someone that did the front end and was familiar with JavaScript, or that technical reasons why you think maybe the stateless aspect that you mentioned. So it was more like it was technical decisions, or it was more resource that you had really gone into this direction?
No, it was deliberate, except from the beginning. So for me, I use C-Side a long time, so I really like it for a special purpose. So that means if you have mostly company internal, really complex stuff, then you favor the C-Side, because doing that with JSON mapping is just overkill. But let's face it, if you really do JavaScript combined with C-Side, there is no way which is good. You end up all these JS splitting, concatenating strings, and it goes out hand, and then C-Side is really session based. And I'm one of the Unix guys that are coming a long way. Hey, I always hate it, because you just put the session object and everything is tied to this. You have to keep up that runtime, it doesn't die, and stuff. And that's not a nice way to put it, so that's my 2 points against C-Side, and so I never thought about it. And the third point of the two is that you have a rich user experience. You have a lot of these, you know, 4-digit number of JavaScript libraries you inherit by doing this, but you want to have animations and all that stuff. And the people that do that front end, that are front end developers. And the way front end looks, we would really have a hard time, especially if you have front end needs that the back end developers have to solve. That's always the big thing you should avoid. Make them. So yeah, I don't like JavaScript. Well, I don't hate JavaScript, but I don't like it too much. I don't find it, but this way was right.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
it's not going to be me, okay? The one talking. No, estoy pensando cómo hacerlo.
Ah, ok. Se encierra, así que no te quiero meter presión.
No, that's it. Sí, Maxi, tengo que pedir permiso para entrar al MIT. Hay que habilitar el MIT. No puedo entrar. ¿Quién quiere ver? No. We're about to start, so I'm gonna. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, I'm about to start the presentation. Dame un segundito.
Tranquilo.
Okay, we will start. So they could make it because this is no sound. We are not having sound.
Thank you for attending my talk.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Hello, and thank you for attending my talk. I'm sorry I can't be there myself. I had intended to be there, but some family health matters came up, and I was not able to do that. So maybe next year I'll be able to do it in person. In any case, I'm going to talk about SAG smalltaks. And SAG is a project that I've been working on for quite a while now, a couple of years. Going slower than I'd like, but I thought I'd give an update on where things stand at the moment. So DAG is a brand new version of Smalltalk from first principles, and it's designed on the assumption that we have large memories today, that virtual machines are 64-bit and have IEEE floating point. Multi-core is key to performance for a modern machine, and that we have relatively fast execution, but we want to relatively fast machines, but we want our Smalltalk system to actually run with good performance, because that is has traditionally been an impediment for some applications. So it's a from scratch implementation. The low-level runtime system is implemented in Z, so it's not Smalltalk that gets translated to a low-level to C or some other low-level language. The low-level is actually implemented in Z. However, there is no interpreter, so this is just the runtime environment, including our reflector, etc. The goal is to support existing open Smalltalk systems because I don't want to rewrite user plan. And I'm not sure exactly when we'll get to the point where we can do that. Obviously, Tweaks would be a good place to start because it's smaller, but should ideally be able to work with Tweaks, Arrow, or Sweet. So what we can speed things up is to move more things to immediate values. So DAG uses a whole series of immediate values. This creates less memory traffic. And so immediate values are all 64-bit and use a modified spur implementation. I'll describe a bit of detail about that. So this gives us double floats, 55-bit small integers, booleans, nil, Unicode, symbols, as well as some block closures, all in immediate values. Originally, I had intended to use NAND boxing, which you may or may not be familiar with. You can still, there's a compile time switch in the runtime that you can choose NAND boxing as an alternative, but the modified spur seems to be better for most purposes. So that's what most of the work these days is working on. So this is a graph of the some immediate values. So nil is just a good old C null pointer. So all zeros is nil. Any 8-byte line object can be represented as a pointer. So you'll see the tags area. The bottom 3 bits are used like they are in spur to encode the type, the lowest level of the types. So 0 is a pointer, just as it is spur. Special case of nil being all zeros. Then we have the 001, the last 3 bits, and this encodes a whole set of immediate values. So in spur, that encoded just a small integer, and code 2 encodes characters. But I've included all of these in the 001, using that 5 bits to capture other, actually a class number. So true and false are there, for example, small integer, symbol character, short strings, as well as a bunch of fun values. And then floats are the range in spur. Floats are at the lowest 3 bits, 100. In modified spur, I have used all the values from 2 up to 7. And that gives me a broader range of floating point values that can be recognized and allows a fair bit faster conversion from tag form to floating points. So I'm not going to go through all the fine details here, but and here are some examples. So we have nil, data addresses. False is this. Here's an integer, 2a, is how it's coded. So we can see it in there, and then there's a tag 61.1. This is the range of small integers. Small integers encoded the largest. In theory, I could use 56-bit small integers, but using 55-bit means that I can handle overflow a little bit more naturally, and so that's what I'm doing. Symbols, characters. I just came up with this idea of having short strings. So this is a immutable string that could be up to 7 characters long, and that can be encoded in an immediate value. Characters, I'm using Unicode grapheme, is the character. And of course, all graphemes cannot be fit in 48 bits, which is what I have available. So if a grapheme doesn't fit in that, then it actually we code it as a character and use a memory object for it. The floats that have the asterisk beside them are ones that are encoded in SPR, encodable in SPR, and the other ones, the ones without the asterisk, are floating point values that DAG supports that SPR doesn't. So this includes all the smallest values, the smallest possible values that you can represent. So basically anything with an absolute value less than or equal to this value, 2E154, are representable as immediate values. And then like SPR, if it's a value that's larger than that, then the floating point value gets coded as an object in memory. Including infinity and NAND. So those values would be coded in memory. So we also have immediate thumps, and these are subclasses of block closure that are representable as immediate values. These are faster to recognize these, and it reduces pressure on the heap because you don't have to allocate heap objects, they're immediate instead. So there are 3 different categories. The first are non-local return values, non-local returns. So if you send one of these a value message, it will return something as a non-local return. So that means that if we go back here, the thunk heap, for example, has the top 48 bits as the address. In the non-local returns, these are all the address of the context that we're doing the non-local return from. So that gives us 8 bits. So we encode, so thunk return local, for example, does a return non-local return from a context and returns the nth value, local value, so it can access up to 256 possible local values as what we're returning. Non-local return instance does the same thing, that returns 256 instance variables from the self object of the method. Small integer returns very small integers, plus or minus 127, basically, in that range. 8-bit integers, in other words. Return immediate returns only a very small number of possible immediates, but it includes nil, true, and false. Return character returns, again, very limited range of characters, basically ASCII characters. So any character that has the 50 bits would be returned in a unreturned character. The reason for these truncated values is because most of the 64 bits is taken up with the address of the context that we're returning from. We also have block assigns. So we can assign local or assign instance variables. Again, in the case of block assign local, the address is the context, and block assign instance is so these are also non-local returns, but they return the value that you're assigning. And finally, we have other thumps. These are funds that evaluate to a particular value and not return, so not return something. So we can have limited values. The heap object, any heap object, an instance variable, an immediate, or float. The immediate include 48-bit integers, plus all characters and so on. And the floats include pretty much all the floats that can be encoded in an immediate, except that the bottom 8 bits have to be 0. So any floating point value that has bottom 8 bit 0 can be encoded as a sum that will return that value. To get faster performance in modern machines, machines are getting faster, well, they're getting a little bit faster, but not very much. Mostly, we can do that with supporting multiple cores. And so, that smalltalk is being designed from the beginning with the intention of supporting multiple cores. That means we're working really hard to minimize the blocking between cores. So the way this is structured is we have computational or mutator threads, and these typically we allocate one of these, so these would be processes in Smalltalk, and typically we allocate one per core. We also have I/O threads, threads within the operating system sense, and one per open file, and so basically these will spend most of their time blocked on reading or writing to a device or to an object, and an operating system object. And then we have a global collector thread. So memory management, mutator threads, each one they use a copying collector. They have a private stack and 2 private nursery arenas. So it copies values back when values move off the stack or are allocated in the heap. They're typically allocated in the nursery arena and the current nursery arena, and then we use a copy collector to copy the live values from there to the other private nursery arena, and we copy back and forth. An object typically will stay in there as long as there is room, and then once there's no longer room, then we will promote objects that have been there for the longest time into the permanent heap, the global heap. So a mutator thread would check periodically to see if the global collector is asking it to mark, and when it is, it goes through a sequence of finding references to globals and then blocks. Then it waits for the collector mutator to recognize those, and then it goes through and does the rest, and it keeps doing this until it's recorded all of the refs, or all the routes to the global heap, and then it proceeds. I/O threads just maintain a list of the current shared buffers while they're I/O blocked. And then we have global collector thread. So a global collector is a non-moving mark and sweep arena. Non-moving because that makes life so much easier in a multi-threaded, multi-process environment. It periodically does a mark. It marks all the known structures, so the class tables, the table, dispatch tables, and I/O thread buffers, and then it asks the mutators for the global routes, which I just described. Then it processes them until all the routes have been found, and proceeds to sweep. So this is a very simple, straightforward process. Obviously, there's complexities. It uses a binary heap for allocation, so it keeps track of all the objects of a particular size, and if it can't allocate something in the heap, in other words, if the largest size is not available, then it will ask the operating system for more heap space. So it grows the heap as appropriate to do that. Now you might say, well, a non-moving collector will eventually run out of space because it'll create holes that it won't be able to to fill, and so we'll end up with a lot of fragmentation. The way we avoid that is that large objects, and large means probably at least a page size, so 4 kilobytes to 16 kilobytes, have separately mapped pages. So if an object, whether it's a simple object or an object with a variable component like an array, if that is all less than 4K, then it will be allocated in the heap part. If it's larger than that, then the array portion will be allocated 2 separately mapped pages. So the header and the references and any instance variables will be in the heap itself, but any the actual array portion will be in a separately allocated area. That area itself is not garbage collected. That area can be garbage collected in the case of the pointer object, but when the object becomes no longer reachable, then the separately allocated space will be freed up and given back to the operating system. So this means that we essentially not run out of address space because we have 256 terabyte of address space roughly, and so we'll be able to allocate space as necessary. This also means we can do nmaps of large files, which can speed up performance on them. Heap objects have a header that is 1 word long. It has a 12-bit length, which goes up to 4K. It has an age, which says whether the object is currently on the stack, in the nursery, or is global. There's several categories of global. The format is somewhat similar to Spur encoding, as in it encodes various size non-object arrays. But it also encodes pointer-free objects, so that those can be collected or not. So if they're pointer-free, we don't have to scan them when we're collecting. Class index is the only hard limit in the system. Right now it is 16 bits, so it would collect, so it would support 32K classes, plus corresponding meta classes. But if that was a problem, in fact, I am aware of some systems that have 100,000 classes. In that case, we could move that boundary, so the identity hash would be a bit smaller, and we could increase the class index. Strings in the heap are stored in UTF-8 format. Okay, another feature of how we gain performance is that we have a different dispatch model. And this is a single level of hashing for method dispatch. So each class dispatch table has an entry for every method that has been sent. So when you send a message to an instance of a class, if that method has not been called before, then we will put it into the dispatch table. And that is a somewhat expensive process. It has to go and find the method, either in the class itself or one of its superclasses, and then it compiles that method for that target class, and then it installs that in the dispatch table. There are many advantages to this, mostly having to do with inlining, but also to do with efficiency of the dispatch. So we also have a very good hashing algorithm using something called pi hashing, which if you're interested, talk to me. Some standards for OpenVM optimization don't work well in multi-core environments. So, for example, there is a global hash lookup that is done. That doesn't work very well in multi-core environments because updating is expensive. So we don't use that. However, we do have polymorphic inline hashes, but they're truncated somewhat because we have a very fast hash dispatch. we only use a relatively small polymorphic inline cache, so we don't use a megamorphic cache. And the exact size of that is something that we will tune over time, but currently we're using 3. And this is all somewhat similar to the JavaScript or self-dispatch model. We also have very high performance inlining, so references to self and super are inline, and this is possible because of the single level dispatch that we use. Methods also with small number of implementations, like true or false, for example, are inline rather than heuristic. So there are no predefined selectors that we will inline automatically. Inline happens only on the basis of can we figure out what the inline should be. We also do tail call optimizations. This allows us to perform loops because if we do not recognize any automatic inlining, then we have to have a way to implement loops. Because in standard smalltalk systems, while true and to do typically are inline, and those are the ways that you actually get loops done, and everything else uses those. We don't support those as any kind of special thing. We just rewrite them so that they use tail call to implement the loops. And this allows us to inline many more looping methods than we would otherwise be able to do. Inlining prevents creation of many block closures, particularly on local returns. This is just the way smalltalk always is, but we're not doing this heuristically, we're doing this from principled inlining. It also provides larger compilation units for optimization, and we inline at the intermediate code level, so the threaded and the VM codes are the same. I haven't mentioned those yet, and I'm mentioning them now. So there's no interpreter, but there are 2 code generation models. First of all, we have threaded execution. This is similar to how Forth does things. And so a method is a sequence of say function addresses and uses threaded execution to thread through from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And this is reasonably fast, but of course the speed of open smalltalk VM fully optimized. We also have a JIT, that's the other compilation model, code generation model. This is a work in progress. We're using LLVM to do the JITting for us because it has very good optimizations, but we're using only intra-function optimizations because our method call structure is not compatible with how we don't use native calls, for example. And this code generation model, we have seamless transition. So we can, initially, a method will be compiled as threaded, possibly with very limited inlining, and then over time we will do more inlining, and then when it's fully inlined, we will switch over to the JIT version. But we retain the threaded version, and this allows us to seamlessly move back and forth between the JIT code and the threaded code. And the threaded code can be debugged, whereas the JIT code, we don't put breakpoints within the JIT code. So breakpoints would be in the threaded code, but we can, as soon as you have some reason to go into a debugger, you can basically switch to threaded execution and stay there as long as that makes sense. So, conclusions, this is preliminary work. So there are a few remaining open questions, although most things are coming together. We have many experiments to run. This is based on a lot of my intuitions, but we really need to validate that intuition. And I would really appreciate pointers to real benchmarks. And hopefully I am now available on Google Meet or some similar video conferencing process so that I can talk to you and answer any questions. Otherwise, feel free to email me or I have my Twitter tag there or act like a hoe, but I very rarely check it. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope this was interesting. If it intrigues you, by all means follow up. I'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Don't need to unmute.
Yeah. Okay, then so can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Just wait a minute because the volume is too high. Yeah. Great. Okay. Is there any question? Yeah. Why do you come here? And because if not, he's not going to hear.
So, Dave, hi. Anthony. I'm curious, when you say that you get at least a quarter of the speed, you mean that you're 4 times faster or that you're 4 times slower?
The threaded code is 4 times slower.
And the optimized code?
I'm not generating optimized code yet, but the experiments I've done show it being about twice as fast.
And who do you think wrote architectures and design Spur?
You did, and with forget your colleague's name, but
Well, maybe you could talk to Clement and find out how much he has to do with the design and implementation. Clement get the incremental compaction work and research. And you have the paper made in the regulation. So.
Okay. Any other question? Questions? Okay, so thank you for being here, there, in the meeting.
virtually, yeah.
Virtually. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Okay, so we're done for today. Now we have the social dinner at 23 past 20. 8 p.m. in Tarde restaurant. See you.